So I'm filming today's video on my cell phone because I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera. I apologize if the audio or video looks a little off, but so I know I said in the beginning of the series that there may be some weeks that our recap will be a little shorter, and this week is probably going to be one of them because Genesis 5 talks about the lineage from Adam all the way to Noah. And so I feel like this kind of gives a bridge between the world, what it was before the flood, and then we're going to talk about Noah's time and then after the flood. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we will definitely cover the flood and Noah's Ark when we get there. But basically that's what I'm referring to when I say the flood. So verse 1 talks about God creating mankind in his own image. Verse 2, male and female were created and he called them mankind. Verses 3 through 5, I thought it was pretty interesting because it talks about Adam and that he had Seth. And so Adam and Eve had many children, the Bible says, numerous. There's no number to count how many kids they had. And this doesn't talk about all of those kids, obviously, not even Cain or Abel, but it immediately refers to Seth. And I thought that was interesting because Seth was made kind of in remembrance. They had Seth in remembrance of Abel. And if you have been following along so far, Abel was killed by his brother Cain. Abel was an upright man in the eyes of God, and Cain was not. And so Seth was kind of a child, not to replace Abel, but more of in honor of Abel. And so Adam had Seth when he was 130 years old, and it says that Seth was in his own likeness. So Seth was a man who followed God, just like Adam did. And I did say, notice Cain does not mention, even though he was alive when Seth was born. And so one thing that I wanted to point out about this entire lineage, but first, before I say anything else, I know sometimes I refer to different commentaries. In this study, I did not refer to a commentary. So I just wanted to put that out there. So one thing that I did notice with all of the lineage is that they talked about people who were living very long. I mean, the shortest life on this list was only 300 years, which in our sense of longevity in life, that's a really long time. That is triple what, someone who lives today. And, even if someone lives to 100 years old today, that's a really long time for us. So the fact that he lived to 300 years and, they had all these numerous children, but the Bible is specifically talking about this one person through all of those kids. And I think that just goes to show that these children that they're referring to probably were very upright in the eyes of God. They followed God with their whole hearts. And I think that's something to definitely be noted. So Adam had many children and died at age 90. And a lot of these verses talks about that. So Seth had Enoch at age 105, died at 912. Enoch had Kenah at age 90, died at age 905. And then we go on down the lineage until we hit Enoch. And that was verses 21 through 23. Enoch had Methuselah, I think that's how you pronounce it, at age 65. And he died at age 365. And it mentioned that Enoch walked faithfully with God for 300 years, and God took him away. So the Bible mentions that all of these people had children at certain ages, and then they died. But with Enoch, it was different because it said that God took him away, and he walked faithfully with God. So Enoch was special, and he was different. And I thought that was pretty cool that was, different. And it said that God took him away. So I'm not exactly sure what that meant. But, I think it's really cool that he was very substantial within all of these people mentioned in the lineage of Noah. And then verses 28 through 31, Lamech had Noah at age 182. And it said that Noah, he will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed. So Noah was substantial and he was a blessed person. And it seemed as if Lamech knew that Noah would be someone who would follow God. And because of his devotion to the Lord, he, even though he looked crazy building the ark, and again, we'll talk about that when we get there, but Noah was definitely somebody who, despite what people thought of him, he continued to do what God asked of him, and he He didn't care. He didn't care what people thought of him, you know. And I strive to be a Noah, because at the end of the day, what does it matter what, you know, anybody else thinks, as long as God sees me and knows that I'm following him with my whole heart and trying my very best, and that's really all I care about, to be very honest. And then Noah had the chapter ends with verse 32. Noah had Shem, Ham, and Japheth at age 500. And I think the upcoming scriptures will definitely talk about his children and things that they did. So, you know, I thought Genesis 5, even though I feel like sometimes we can look at lineage and kind of breeze over it, but I think it's important to note that Cain's, you know, none of Cain's lineage was here. I mean, I think if Abel was still alive, I wonder if you know, Noah would have been in his lineage, because Abel was a good man in the eyes of God. So, you know, I think that it's interesting to note that Cain's sin continues on for generations. I mean, in the chapter previous, we saw that Cain's lineage ended up in, you know, destruction, and the Noah was in the lineage of Seth. So that's just another, I think, forewarning. Let's just be very mindful of what we're doing, and let's not sin knowingly. You know, I think it's one thing to do something and then, you know, think about it and think, you know, I shouldn't have done that. But then it's another thing to know that you're going to do something that hurts God and then do it anyway. So let's follow the example. Let's not follow the example of Cain and, you know, end up in that kind of situation. And so that's it. Like I mentioned, it's going to be quick this week, but thank you so much for joining me. Next week we will read, or this week rather, we'll read Genesis chapter 6, and then we'll meet next Friday to talk about it. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you next time. Bye.